Hello, you are listening to Dr. Sushma Singh. Today in Unit 4 Sustainable Development, let us start our lecture with the topic Criticisms of the Concept of Sustainable Development. The concept of sustainable development as defined by the Brundtland Commission has been subjected to critical scrutiny by many scholars. The criticism not only point out the logical contradictions and semantic ambivalence in the terms, but it also center on its vagueness, ambiguity of the terms, phrases included in the definition, points out difficulties at the operational level, and attempt to uncover implicit assumptions and political motives. Now let us discuss the first point, sustainable development, logical contradictions and semantic ambivalence. Scholars like Ramesh Diwan take an extreme stand and express the view that the concept of sustainable development represents contradiction in the term itself. He remarks that development and sustainability are not only the incompatible with each other, they are contradictory as well. In other words, sustainable is not development. Such a view clearly implies that the term development used in any sense, say economic growth or growth with equity or improvement in quality of life or modernization, inevitably leads to an increase in the level of consumption and also to the exploitation of natural resources. According to Wolfgang Sketch, the linkage of the term sustainable to the development has created a terrain of semantic ambivalence. In his words, within the new concept, the locus of sustainability has subtly shifted from the nature of development. While sustainable previously referred to the natural yields, it also refers to development, and the perceptual frame also changes. Instead of nature, development becomes the objective of certain, and instead of development, nature becomes the critical factor to be watched. In short, the meaning of sustainability slides from conservation of nature to conservation of development. Now let us turn to the next point, definition of sustainable development, vague and ambiguous. In the opinion of Sukhmoy Chakravarti, the phrase sustainable development says nothing precise and therefore means anything to anybody. Anil Agarwal adds, for a lodging company, it can mean sustained projects. For an environmental economist, it can mean sustained stocks of the natural forests. For a social ecologist, it can mean sustained use of forests. And for an environmentalist, it can mean a clean heritage for our children. But surely confusion cannot be more productive than clarity. The observation of William F. Fisher show persons with different viewpoints holds different philosophical positions, having different goals in mind and advocating different means to achieve desired ends, use the same moral vocabulary of social justice and same economic rhetoric of sustainable development. In his view, sustainable development has become a term that is usually used to justify whatever one does and by implication criticize those with different goals, strategies, and opinions. Widely debated Sardar Sarovar project in India is the case in point. Fishers write, dam proponents and opponents seem sincere in their commitment to goal of sustainable development and social justice. But what they mean by these terms differ. Not only does the term sustainable development mean different things to the different persons or groups, its meaning also differ for one set of nation from that of the other. As Sevilla Gumen, Andrado and Graham Woodgate have brought out the official discourse as represented in the Brundtland Committee report, our common future seems to be differentiate between the meanings of sustainable development as it applies to the industrial nation and its implication for countries whose economies are relatively less industrialized. For the latter, the first, it means the realization of the potential for economic growth. Second, it promotes the generalized increases in levels of the consumption for high industrialized nation. Sustainable development allows for the continued realization of the nation's growth potential so long as it is not achieved at the expense of the others. Such growth will continue to be industrial in nature as according to the World Commission on Environment and Development. Industrial production is of fundamental importance to the economies of the modern societies and an indispensable motor of growth. C.R. Reddy also views the Commission's definition as simple but vague. In the words of Wolfgang Sanch, V. Ratna Reddy, referring to the concern for meeting the needs of future generation expressed in the Commission's definition, says, at the conceptual level, it is difficult to circumvent the conflicts between the present and the future generation interests. While the needs for the conceived differently from our environment and culture to another in the same generation, how future generations will conceive of their needs may well be beyond our imagination. Now let us turn to the next point, critique related to the operational substance of the definition. While raising doubt regarding the operational substance of the definition, Anil Agarwal again C.R. Reddy comments that while an entire UN machinery has been created around sustainable development, the world is still waiting for an operational meaning of what is an initiative appealing but yet fuzzy concept. In a similar vein, William F. Fisher observes that while widespread commitment to the term sustainable development might suggest a growing worldwide consensus on the need for development that is sustainable, there is no agreement about the specific goals of sustainable development or the appropriate means to achieve them. About the Brundtland Commission's definitions of the term, let us discuss the next point, critique relating to the politics of sustainable development. K.R. Nair looks at the concept of sustainable development as a political instrument and is critical for many aspects of Commission's definition. He argues that the concept of sustainable development has emerged from those countries which themselves practice unsustainable resource use, and further adds that the politics of sustainable development is that at present it is anti-South, anti-poor and thereby anti-ecological. Nair also comments that the need with reference to the sustainable development is affluence rather than basic, or opulence rather than squalor. Because when basic needs become an integral component of the developmental model, the question of unsustainability does not arise. He further adds that the cyclical relationship between poverty and environmental degradation is conceptualized in simple terms, while uncovering the implicit political motive behind the Western concern for curtailment of population growth in developing countries for sustainable development. Nair expresses the views that the sustainable development is visualized as a solution to make available raw materials on the continuous basis, so that the production system, the expanding market, and the political system are not threatened. The raw material in the developing countries therefore need to be protected and their population growth curtailed so that resources would remain easily available again. In his opinion, the "not in my backyard" or NIMBY syndrome is mainly responsible for ecological unsustainable development projects, including hazardous industrial shifting out of these countries to developing countries, when the aim is to suggest patchwork solution to the unsustainable production system of the North. Population growth in the South automatically becomes the target of the debate on sustainable development. Here we want to close our today's lecture. Thanks for listening.